Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Crystal. I'm your host and you are watching The Feminine Aspect. So if this is the first time we're seeing each other, I just want to say hello and tell you a little bit about my channel. This channel is centered around women applying logic and wise decision making while navigating the patriarchy. We do this so that we can create ideal outcomes for ourselves. We seek to make good decisions today that will have long-lasting, positive downstream effects much later. So if that's something you're into, feel free to join the community. We'd love to have you. So you might want to get your weighted blankie. This is going to be kind of a heavy topic. I do want to issue out a trigger warning. We're going to be talking about childhood trauma, things like emotional abuse. Feel free to skip this video. I have plenty of other videos that you can look at and watch and learn a ton from. So in today's video, we will be talking about childhood trauma, things I would never do or say to my children. This can also be a guide for people who are not yet parents in regards to what you should not do as a parent. So throughout my life experience, I've just regarded some things and I've come to the conclusion that some people do not deserve to have children. I don't come from a place of looking down on other people because we all make mistakes. However, some people simply do not have the emotional intelligence, the bandwidth, or the empathy to be a successful parent. And having children is not just about having a baby, right? Like the baby phase, it only lasts about 2 years, right? And then you have a toddler, and then you have a child, and the preteen, and the teenager, and they're going to transition into adulthood, right? So you're raising a person to become a fully functional adult. You're simply an avenue as a parent, an avenue or a guide that is supposed to assist your child from infancy to adulthood. There are different types of trauma that we've all suffered in some capacity, right? Some have severe trauma and others have less trauma, but it is all trauma nonetheless. And it does affect every aspect of your adult life, the types of romantic partners you choose, the things you settle for, your inability to walk away from situations that are no longer serving you, people-pleasing tendencies, even your tendency to try to make difficult people love you. That all stems from childhood trauma or the experience you've had in your childhood. Right? It is relevant to revisit your childhood, and that's something that I personally have been doing so that I don't, for many reasons, but I mainly don't want to repeat certain behaviors or patterns in my family. There are two types of parents that I've seen. There are people that have suffered, and we all have suffered, as I just stated. And this first type of parent adamantly desires to do things differently with their own children. So they gain the self-awareness, they go to therapy, they do the work, and they do everything in their power to learn about the many things that were less than ideal. It came to their childhood and how they were raised. Their intention is to do better because they recognize that those situations were not ideal. The second type of parent is a parent that has suffered and says, but I turned out fine, so I'm going to do the same thing to my children. And then there's also a third type of parent that understands that they were raised in a toxic environment and they say, my child is going to suffer the same way I did. Those are kind of like psychopaths because they know what they're doing. As long as you seek to do better and as long as you have empathy and an understanding of your role as a parent, then you should be fine. You're going to make mistakes as a parent, and I'm not, oh my God, I don't want to come across as I'm a parenting coach or anything. I'm just a person. I'm just a mom. I don't want to come across as judgy is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to say that I'm looking down, and I'm not looking down on anyone, but there are certain things you should just not do to your kids or say to your kids. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. So let's get right into it, shall we? Okay. Oh my God. Oh, how long was that happening? So, the first thing I would never do to my child is forcibly dump my trauma onto my child. This can look like telling my child things about their parent that they shouldn't know about, that are inappropriate. Things like things that you would share with your girlfriend or with your friend about your spouse or ex-spouse or their stepfather. You know what I'm saying? There are things that you're going to discuss with your friends who are adults that you should never discuss with your even adult children. They don't want to hear that about their parent. It's inappropriate and it's actually really damaging. Any kind of excessive bashing of the other parent, the child does not know how to process that, and they're going to come away with that oftentimes with a dent in their self-concept. So if you want to do that to your child, then continue to bash the other parent. Sorry, this video is very triggering for me, so I'm really trying my best to get through to this because I need to get this message out to people. So please bear with me. I'm going to edit some things out. Another part of that is crying for pity or sympathy, having meltdowns in front of your children. This is very different from having a human moment in front of your child, as opposed to crying because you're looking for sympathy or you're looking to turn the child against their parent because you're crying because you're so stressed because of what the other parent is doing, you know, things like that. Crying for manipulative purposes, please don't do that to your children. I think it's actually very important to show children that you can get overwhelmed, you can get overstimulated, so that they know it's extremely normal to be overstimulated and overwhelmed and sad and joyous, and for them to see that full spectrum of human emotion. I think it's positive, it's advantageous. But when you're crying for manipulative purposes to get some sort of sympathy or reaction towards another parent through your tears or through your apparent duress, that's not right. You're unhinged and you're scaring your kids. Another thing I couldn't do to my child is prevent my daughter specifically from wearing makeup or doing age-appropriate things that her peers are doing. This is infantilization. So I would not infantilize my child. There are certain things that should be happening when a girl is coming of age. She should dress differently. She should dress a little more grown. She should learn how to apply makeup and how to do her hair and, you know, how to groom herself properly, because there are standards for children to groom themselves. And then when you're transitioning into adulthood, there are different standards. For example, if my daughter has an interest in makeup, I'm not going to take her makeup away. If anything, I'm going to teach her how to properly apply her makeup, because if you know, you know. If you're a girl or a woman who used to really have an affinity for makeup as a young teen or as a teenager, didn't really know the difference between daytime looks and nighttime looks, right? So we were struggling. We were wearing a full face of nighttime makeup to fifth period math. I mean, the struggle was real, right? If you know, you know. So instead of demonizing my child for not knowing how to apply their makeup properly, because obviously they're a child and they're a teenager and this is their first experience with makeup, I would simply, as a woman, as the feminine archetype in their life, the feminine lead, their feminine blueprint, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to bond with my daughter and teach her how to apply her makeup and teach her how to teach her about her undertones and what types of makeup will look good for her facial features and how to accentuate. Is that the word? Accentuate? I think that's the right word. Accentuate her natural features as opposed to masking her features with makeup. It's a great bonding opportunity, but some moms, especially from certain backgrounds, they just don't want their female children to grow up for some reason. They don't want them to become women, but they're going to become women whether you guide them properly or not. So you might as well guide them through those little girly, fun processes. It's supposed to be fun. Lighten up, you know? That's just me personally. I'm not going to infantilize my child. I'm also not going to adultify my child. Again, I'm going to guide them through the process of becoming a woman and learning how to specifically do her makeup. You know, I'd love to do that with my daughter one day. Also, keep in mind that your child is external from you. They have their own interests and hobbies, and it's your job as a parent to celebrate their interests instead of demonizing them and making it difficult for them to express themselves through their appearance. Something else I would never do to my child is not support them or their choice of extracurricular activities. My child will never look out into the stands or the audience and not see me there. Parents, please keep in mind, never underestimate the power of your support and your presence. You know, like, unfortunately, some of us know what that feels like, right? It's not a good feeling, you know, like you might not be particularly good at the sport you're doing or the instrument you play, but the fact that your parent is there saying, I'm your biggest fan and, you know, you got this, show the world what you can do, is so positive and just so amazing for a person's self-concept. That's what you should strive to do, is support your child's self-esteem. So I'm definitely that parent. I'm supporting everything extracurricular wise. I don't care if my child is not the best. I don't care if my child is not number one. They will always know that their mommy is their biggest fan. Another thing I would never do as a parent is tell my kids that I like them, but I don't love them. This is common amongst narcissistic family systems or toxic family systems, and I didn't realize this until I was, you know, watching certain videos and I saw that people were talking about their experiences with toxic parents or a toxic parent that would tell them, I don't like you, but I love you. And I didn't realize that, wow, this is something that happens. This is not an independent experience. This is something that a lot of other people go through, and I think this is a tactic, or this is a part of the pathology of a narcissistic person or a person with narcissistic traits. I could never. Another thing I would never do is push my own hobbies onto my child and then make them feel guilty for not enjoying them, right? Or lacking passion. First of all, I'm not even giving my children the illusion of choice. If my child has never come up to me and said, I'm interested in playing this instrument, I'm not going to waste our time getting him signed up for that, right? In addition to that, your child has the ability to choose. So if they're interested in something for a season and they're no longer interested in it, why are you going to make them feel bad for that? I understand wanting your child to stay the course so that they can learn how to work hard and get better at something and build a skill set. I understand that, but there's no long-term benefits in making your child feel guilty, and especially bringing it up even in their adulthood that they didn't want to do this thing that they never even wanted to do in the first place. You were simply projecting your own lost dreams that never came to fruition onto your child, and that is unfair. Are you surprised that they lack passion? They never even wanted to do the activity. And if they wanted to do it at some point, they no longer want to do it, and you can change your mind, you know? Another thing I would never do to my child is not apologize when I'm wrong or when I make a mistake. Mom can be wrong sometimes. Mom is sorry. Mom didn't do the right thing. Some people never hear those words, and that's a problem. This one is bad. So I would never talk badly about my child to others and then get appalled or act surprised when those others use my slander as ammunition to attack my child. First of all, I'm not attacking my child. Every child makes mistakes. No child is going to do everything you want them to do, okay? And it doesn't mean that you get to slander them and gossip about them with other family members. And then when those family members attack your child with that same ammunition you just gave them, you act like, oh my God, how could this happen? How could it happen? You're the causation. You are the reason. Me personally, I know my child is going to disappoint me in certain areas. I know that they're not going to always do what I want them to do. I mean, come on, this is life. So my nature is not to talk about my child because, you know, and anyone who even thinks that they're going to talk about my child, they learn very quickly that I don't tolerate that. So not for me and mine, no. Okay, another thing I would never do, and this is, again, very common in toxic family systems, I would never play favorites or triangulate my children against each other. This can look like having secret meetings without the perceived scapegoat of the family. And I don't think I've ever talked about scapegoats. Let's just talk about that really quickly. In a toxic family system, the parents, which are usually the toxic people because they are the creators of the family system, they often assign roles to certain children. So the scapegoat is oftentimes the truth teller. They're the person that's the most honest. They call out the family for their toxic behavior. They're oftentimes emotional, empathetic, sensitive, so they're seen as weak. Sometimes they have a disability, and the parent scapegoats that child because the parent oftentimes is narcissistic in nature, has narcissistic traits, and they see the child's disability as an embarrassment. Very small, concise explanation, but the scapegoated child is the least favorite, the black sheep. So oftentimes a toxic family system will have secret meetings without the perceived scapegoat. They will be bad-mouthing the scapegoat in those meetings. And they just talk really badly about the scapegoat to the other children. If you were a genuine person and you really view this scapegoated child as a problem child, then you should look into the Pygmalion effect. It's way more effective. The Pygmalion effect is a psychological phenomenon where you can tell a person positive things about themselves and then they will eventually live up to those standards, right? So if you're genuinely concerned about this child that you just have a problem with, then use the Pygmalion effect instead of having secret meetings and turning everybody against the child and treating that child very badly. And I mean, do you love your child or not? You know, do you want to help your child or not? Or are you just self-hating and therefore you hate your child? You know, I digress, but these are questions to ask yourself. Another thing I would never do is invade my child's privacy, especially when they're coming of age. This can look like reading diaries, searching through their possessions, going through their drawers, going through their phone, you know, unless there was a glaring red flag or a reason where I would need to, for either my child's safety or the safety of other children, go through their items to make sure they're okay. You shouldn't just be going through your child's stuff. Like, what kind of relationship do you have with your child where you're not even able to speak to your child directly and find out if they're okay? You have to go behind their back and like search through their stuff. That just seems a little unhinged for me. And a child does have the right to privacy in my book. They should have a right to privacy even if they're living in my home. Just because they're living in my home does not mean I get to go through their stuff and access their things. They're their own individual person, and especially if they're coming of age, just if you have an issue, if you have a concern, just talk to them. This is a big one, but I would never use shame-based punishment for my child, right? Or I would never participate in breaking my child's spirit as a control tactic. Things like shame-based punishment or trying to keep your child humble and small, humiliating your child, using punishments that break your child's self-esteem or confidence. What are you doing? A lot of these personality disorders and mood disorders come from this feeling of shame or people being made to feel ashamed or small or insignificant, and it has long-lasting effects. And certain people just have different ideologies, and I've heard things and I've seen things that are quite disturbing. I don't get it. I don't understand why you would want your child to feel humiliated, to feel small, and to have low self-esteem. And I don't know, like, I don't want to get emotional. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get emotional, but sometimes you see a child like walking around, and you can just tell that they have the lowest self-esteem and they're so young. So for you to want that, you can see it. You can see it in the way their shoulders are slumped over. You can see it in the way they're carrying their things. You can see it in the lack of eye contact. So as to why you would want that for your own child, I don't understand it. And I could never use shame-based punishment for my child. I would use anything else to get through to my child. And there are so many different avenues to reach your child other than breaking their spirit. If you're doing that, you can do what you want. We all make choices. We all have free will. But please, there are so many people on this planet who struggle with self-esteem, who struggle with maintaining a positive self-concept. And there's so many people watching videos like this who are trying to get peace because their parents just wanted to humiliate them and make them feel small. So if we can just stop doing that, that would be great. And I really think that the world would be a better place. This is really difficult. There's a reason why I have been putting this off and trying to prolong doing this video, because it's really hard to talk about for me. Okay, next point. Oh gosh, this is another heavy one. Searching myself for you because I know you guys need this message, so it's okay. I would never not make it abundantly clear that, can you say these things? Maybe I'll just put it on the screen, that this is not okay, right? Or inappropriate behavior, or inappropriate touching, or inappropriate comments from adults. I would make it abundantly clear that this is not okay, and you tell mommy right away, and mommy will handle it, right? I would never maintain relationships with these types of people. I would never maintain relationships with these types of people to save face. I would always prioritize my child's obvious lack of comfort with being around this person who made them feel uncomfortable. I'll probably put it on the screen when they're around the person who made them feel uncomfortable. My child would, God forbid, may this never reach anyone that I know, right? Or my children. But my child would never have to be around that person again. I don't care who you are. You will never make my child feel uncomfortable ever again. And my child doesn't have to worry about being around that person and navigate, okay, how do I make myself feel less uncomfortable with this obvious elephant in the room. I would never put a victim, much less my child, who, God forbid, was in that situation. I would never put them back in that situation. I would never laugh at or ridicule my children's aspirations or place my own limiting beliefs on my child. For example, if my child says that they want to go to Oxford for college, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that they get there, right? Or he's on the path to getting accepted by some Ivy League, where I'm fully on board, right? And if he falls short, it won't be because I laughed at him or made it feel like it was impossible for him to accomplish this dream, or he was dreaming too big, right? Again, it goes along with shaming your children, making them feel small, making them feel like their dreams are too big. How do you think a child is going to internalize that? And then you wonder why your child struggles with consistent toxic relationships, low self-esteem. yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I'm just glad that I'm so grateful for my empathy, and I'm so grateful for my heart. And I hope that you come away from this being more knowledgeable about maybe how to navigate parenthood. But I just wanted to share with you things that I would never do to my child that I've seen other people do. So I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you have a great day and stay safe. Bye.